Hello and welcome back to JW Informed Consent. My name's Amiri McCain, and I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses for almost 27 years, and had been serving in some capacity since 2001, and I just stopped serving in January 2025, and for the last 15 years or more I was serving as an elder. And today I just wanted to reach out to elders, former elders, circuit overseers, and former circuit overseers. And like Bob Marley saying, say something. I want to ask you to say something. And I'll get into why I mention elders and circuit overseers in a minute, or maybe in a couple minutes. Might take a moment. But during the COVID pandemic, there were a number of Jehovah's Witnesses who were not happy with the fact that the governing body, and the governing body, for those who don't know, is the top leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses. They reside in upstate New York. That's where Jehovah's Witness headquarters is at. And all policy, doctrine, and rules come through the governing body. Yes, we have the Bible, or Jehovah's Witnesses have the Bible. This is still fresh for me. But the glasses that Jehovah's Witnesses have to use, the lens of understanding the Bible, is through the governing body and through the literature, through Watchtower magazines, Awake magazines, books, videos, oral law, oral rules, culture, and tradition. And these have an effect that is hard to describe unless you've been in it. And so, again, during the COVID pandemic, there were a number of Jehovah's Witnesses that weren't happy with the fact that the governing body was pushing this medical product, this medical procedure, especially since it was under EUA. It was under experimental use authorization for a long time. It was under EUA while most Jehovah's Witnesses, and I would say the rest of the world, took this medical product. One elder that was very close to, at one point I'm in his home and he's staring down at the ground. He says to me, "Yeah, Amiri, I didn't want to take the shot, but I felt like I was being left out of LDC." Now, LDC is Local Design Construction Department. It used to be RBC, Regional Building Committee. So the LDC is responsible for building new Kingdom Hall buildings. These are other religions, other Christian religions would call these buildings churches. Jehovah's Witnesses call them Kingdom Halls. And on LDC, especially as we got over the big hump of the COVID pandemic, they started ramping that up, right, for building new Kingdom Halls, for maintenance, and for revitalizing buildings around the country, around the world even. And so he was still on Zoom at this point, this elder I'm talking about, and he was being left out. And that's how he felt. So because he felt that he was being left out of LDC and was not able to participate, he went ahead and took this medical procedure so that he wouldn't feel this way. And this is like a father figure to me, someone who is about the age of my father. So, and he's true. What he said is true. He's correct. At first, you could not participate in LDC. You had to be vaccinated. And where I'm at, I'm hearing this in different congregations, right? And as an elder, I'm receiving letters to that effect. Even though sometimes the way letters that come from the governing body or the branch, you always have questions, right? There's parts in there that are vague, but the understanding was, if you haven't had your full If you're not fully vaccinated, meaning you had to have both shots. And I think the one shot, the Johnson & Johnson was a one-shot deal, pun intended there. So, you couldn't participate. Now, after a little while passed, they started to say, okay, well, you can participate, but you were going to have to basically do 3x the number of precautions with masking and distancing while you're here working on construction, right? You're building buildings, and so basically you were being shamed at that point. And the pressure was very intense, as you can tell by that story I just shared with you. Now, what's interesting is this same elder, he later told me that never happened. He said that the governing body never said that. They never said that you had to be fully vaccinated to help with LDC. He said it was just some elders making up rules. Now, does that sound familiar? It was just some brothers making up stuff. But that's strange because this was happening everywhere for it to be just a few elders. For example, in my own congregation, the elder body I served on, the elders told me that I could not help with LDC. So again, I'm getting emails from LDC. Hey, we need your help. We need this and that. And I don't have like these amazing construction skills that some brothers and sisters have. But I would do landscaping. I helped in the kitchen at times and with food prep and different things. And just labor, just hard labor. And so they're reaching out to me. I'm receiving emails to come help, but I couldn't do that. Now later they changed it, but at first you couldn't. Now aside from my family of 5, which included my grandmother-in-law at the time, I know of only 4 others in my congregation that didn't take the shot. And there were likely others, but they were probably very quiet about it, and I understand that. And the point of why I'm explaining this is because the ones who were complaining that I'm talking to, most of them took the shot, right? And they were still complaining, and they're still there. They're still in the religion. So that's the point there. It wasn't all these people who didn't take it and they were real anti and real like these extremists. No, these were the ones who took it, but were saying, yeah, I don't like the messaging. I don't like how the governing body is pushing this. And, like my friend, family, in-law family member, elder, just like, yeah, I don't like this, Amiri, but this is Jehovah's organization, right? And I wanted to help. I didn't want to be left out, right? And to me that's kind of a sad situation. Now here's the point of this video, and I haven't heard others mention it, and that's why I wanted to share. While I was still serving as an elder, I served with an elder who had connections at Bethel, right? Headquarters. Or there's Bethels all around the world, but a lot of times when you say Bethel as a witness, especially here in the United States, you're talking about headquarters. Excuse me. And so different people will have connections to Bethel, right? Because there's people living in Bethel. It might be their sons and daughters. It might be their brother or sister, their parents, or whatever. Now this brother, he was an older elder, and he had some connection, some elder he knew there or in and around Bethel. And he's explaining to me and whoever was in the small little group where we were talking, he said that he had heard from this other elder that there were 600 elders that were removed for speaking out against the COVID vaccine. 600 elders. Now, he didn't say whether he was talking about worldwide. Excuse me. But from the context I understood that to be the United States, right? So 600 elders were removed for speaking up. And I wonder how many of those elders ended up leaving, if any. 10%? 5%? Right? 60? 30? Did 10 of those elders leave the religion? I wasn't removed. I wasn't speaking up against it. I shared what I believed when it made sense, but I wasn't campaigning and trying to be all intense with it. Now, again, while I'm serving as an elder, this is a separate situation. We're at this elder's house, my family with his family. We're hanging out, having dinner. The kids are playing together. And this elder and his family were new in my congregation, and he quickly became the Kobe, which is the coordinator of the body of elders. That's the elder in the congregation who takes the lead. Well, this elder had lived in Utah, and he told me stories of 2 to 3. I remember him explaining 2. I thought he mentioned a third, but we'll just say 2. He mentioned 2 circuit overseers around Utah that left the organization. They left the religion during the COVID pandemic over this situation. They got tired of it, they were fed up, and they left. Now, to those who are Jehovah's Witnesses or have been Jehovah's Witnesses, I would think that this would be pretty surprising, right? This would be pretty shocking, because a circuit overseer is an elder, for those who don't know, but he's traveling around the state where he's assigned, and he's visiting the congregations. I think Jehovah's Witness would compare that to like the Apostle Paul. So this elder that has the title of circuit overseer, that's all he does. That's his full-time job. He doesn't work. Him and his wife do not work. They do this full time. It is a lot of work. They will usually be more connected into Bethel. They will at times be more connected in with the branch, right? Like the United States branch. They'll be more connected in with the governing body, I would say. And so that is surprising to me to hear that. And so again, elders and circuit overseers, like Bob Marley saying, say something, speak up. Please, we need more people to speak up. And I know that if you've left, you might be in a space where you can't speak up, where you're PMO, right? Physically in, mentally out, because you're in fear of losing family and friends. And I get it. I don't judge. And I hope that in the future you can get into a space where you can speak up about these things, because I think it's important for others to hear. I think it's important for everyone to share their story, but especially elders and circuit overseers who were operating at that level in the organization, and then they've left. Right? And I'll continue to walk through these stories and share people's words and reactions. There's, again, like Bob Marley said, there's so much things to say. He said, I have so much things to say right now. And it doesn't matter whether we chose this medical product or not. The point is that the governing body, the way they manipulated 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses was wrong. And I think about this. I think about whether or not I would have woke up if the governing body's messaging would have been the other way around. If they would have been pushing saying don't get this, right? Because I would have agreed with that, right? That would have been with what I agree with. And then what if the GB would have been saying, don't get this, and not getting it is obedience to God. See, that's where I think the manipulation would have woken me up either way, right? Because there were extremes on both sides. Like during the pandemic, there were churches, I was reading about churches where they were, on one side, they were saying, don't get this medical product is of the devil, it's directly from the devil. And then on the other side, they were saying that this medical product was from God, right? It was a blessing from God. To me, those are extremes. And wasn't it the governor, I forget her name, but wasn't there a governor in New York who was in a church? I know there's video out there because I watched the video when it happened, and she was up at the pulpit or whatever you call it in a church, and she was talking about how God had given the people this, and she was pushing it, and you're just like, man, this is wild to watch. And someone the other day was ranting on a YouTube post about those who didn't take it thinking they're morally superior, and they were going off, just dropping F-bombs, and they're pretty upset. And I don't think that. I don't think that I'm morally superior because I didn't take this medical product. And neither should those who took it think that they're morally superior, right? We made a choice. But were we informed? Did we give informed consent? See, that's where I think we weren't informed. We weren't informed by our religion, and we also weren't informed by the governments and these regulatory agencies that are out there. But it shouldn't divide us. These things should not divide us. I had a ministerial servant friend of mine, a little bit older than me. During the pandemic, we were still in lockdown, but we would sneak off to the park and let our kids play together so they could release some of that energy. And he was telling me he took it, and he didn't like it. He didn't like the push. He didn't like the messaging. He didn't like how the elders were talking about things. But he said that, because I was asking, I'm bewildered. I'm asking him, bro, why did they push this? Why are they getting involved in that? And he said, well, they did it, I think, and he's just speculating, right? But he says, I think they did it for the greater good. They likely knew it would hurt some. They did the calculations or whatever, and they made the decision for to basically tell 8 million plus people to take it. And I thought, well, yeah, that might be. I still don't think that was a good idea. To me, the governing body should have presented all options, right? They should have had a broadcast or an update where they bring out a panel of experts on different sides, right? And different treatment options. And they should have presented all of that to us and left it open rather than pushing a medical procedure that was under EUA and then associating that with obedience to God. Now, what I'm describing, Jehovah's Witnesses never do that. Like the governing body never does anything like that, and they never would. But I've just thought, during the pandemic, I was thinking, what would be a more balanced approach to this, to where you can just inform people, fully inform people, and then let them consent one way or the other. So anyway, that's all I wanted to share. I was pretty surprised. I've been holding on to this information. I've talked to a few and they hadn't heard this, but I was surprised to hear that 600 plus or so elders were removed for speaking out about the COVID vaccine, for speaking against it, right? And I have to imagine that this would have been after the letter, the private secret letter that Jehovah's Witness elders received, telling them to, hey, if you have anything negative to say about this treatment, now's the time to be quiet, right? Now's the time to stop. And then they cited Romans 13, right? It was surprising to me to hear about 2 or 3 circuit overseers, and there's probably more, right, that left during the pandemic over this, and they had just had enough. And I hope you brothers, I hope you men can speak up at some time in the future, or share, or maybe you can share in your own way, in your own circle, because I think it's important. Well, that's all I have. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you for listening, and have a good day. Until next time.